I know that I got the guy. Hey, Bernadette, jump you guys to there close. All right. There's some work right there. James, you're gonna have to sit in the you're gonna have to wait in the back. I know 20. Guys are sitting over here. It's great.
How much cash we really have?
Yeah,
Hello, Joe, can you hear me?
Steve Jones and Luis Hernandez working together for the very first time. You guys sound great. Thank you very much. So we're going to stick around. You're not going anywhere. I just want you to know, people are still coming in. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, here's what we're going to do. The officials, Fritzi tribute is multi-faceted. We have comedians at the end. In between, we have speakers who know of Fritzi. We're going to have a few people who are involved in the Balmoral Tribunal tomorrow, speaking in between them for a few minutes. And we have a special treat. Fritzi, I last saw was in Husseini. What? You realize what really is unsettling for me? Now that she's not here, I'm the oldest motherfucker in the world. Seriously. All right, you got to get off the cell phone. That's one thing. Anyone who has the use of cell phones, go in the back room. I drove down here. I went to a train with people on cell phone, on the subway with people on the cell phone. It's like really an opium pill. You got to you want to hit, go out there. All right, you can take pictures, but turn the sound down so I can hear mine. Here, you take these, don't give them back. All right. So please don't use your cell phone. So Fritzi, as you know, is an avid book reader. She gave me this book over here on top. This is where she always sat. Fritzi, at every one of these events. Sam Husseini, 2 years ago, took me to Fritzi when I was looking for a spot to do the stand-ups for Assange event. Lee Camp and I had the idea 2 years earlier, but the pandemic hit, so we postponed it. I came into the city, we looked all around, and he says, over here. So we came over here. I met Fritzi. Totally loved her. I've known her for a year and a half, but it's a big loss for anyone who knew Fritzi. And being in this hotel without her is really very strange. But by the way, I'm just a rank Italian sentimentalist, so it's okay to cry. right? So what we're going to do, she wanted Stefania's book. Stefania Maurizi. She listened to the show religiously, my radio show on the Assange Countdown. She heard Stefania. She said, "Can you give me that book?" I said, "It's not out yet. When it comes out, finally it's out." So Fritzi did not get a copy of that book, and she really wanted it. And so Stefania comes out to the March Tribunal tomorrow, and I said, "Why don't you come here?" And Fritzi in spirit is here, and she's got the new book out, and Srećko, who's organizing the event tomorrow at the National Press Club, is going to interview her. So let's welcome Srećko, Horvat, and Stefania Maurizi. They have a microphone, but it's time to go.
Do we need a microphone?
No.
No,
You got
okay.
Yeah, I think we're loud enough.
Yes, we Italians, loud enough.
And we from the Balkans as well. So, good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here tonight with my dear friend Stefania Maurizi, whom I haven't seen for a few years. So, first, just a short introduction, and then this will be a conversation, and I hope you will join us as well. SAD is a country which needs heroes. That's what the German playwright Bertolt Brecht said. And I would add, SAD is a country, your country, my fellow Americans, which needs a guy like me from the Balkans and an Italian to come here to Washington, D.C. to protect the First Amendment and to speak about the protection of freedom of speech and journalism. SAD is a country in which a publisher like Julian Assange is being imprisoned in something which is called the British Guantanamo. SAD is a country which doesn't put people in prison who committed war crimes. But enough of sadness. We are lucky tonight, and we are lucky when we have people like Stefania Maurizi here, and Randy, and Fritzi Cohen, whom I unfortunately didn't know, but I'm really glad to be here at this tribute. So we are lucky that we have such people here, and also people like Steven Donziger in the audience and many others. We are here tonight. I'm speaking fast because Randy said you have to finish until I don't know when. There's a huge program, and these people here are not really interested into this book talk. They came for a tribute to Fritzi Cohen and so on. But as I can see, you are all here because of this book. So a few words about the book, and then I'll pose a few questions. First of all, this is an incredible book. This is a very courageous book. I think it's one of the best or the best books about WikiLeaks and the case of Julian Assange. Why? Because Stefania Maurizi is one of the rare journalists who was there from the very start, I think from 2008. Who was there at the beginning, and she describes it very well in this book. First of all, because WikiLeaks succeeded to create something which other major publications and newspapers didn't succeed to create in that way, and that was the novum of WikiLeaks, as Stefania convincingly shows, which is encryption. And you were interested in encryption because you studied mathematics, which I found very interesting. I didn't know it before I read the book. And why is that important? It's important because for the first time, we were able to protect whistleblowers. We were people would be able to reveal secrets without being traced by the CIA, NSA, or the Pentagon. And this book, as the title says, Secret Power, is mainly about those most powerful institutions in the world, American institutions, who targeted one man, not only one man, there is another man in the audience who was also targeted. By the way, Stefania and me were also targeted, not in the same way. I'm not comparing us to the fate of Donziger or Assange, but we were also spied on at the Ecuadorian embassy in London by the CIA. So instead of now spoiling the whole book, maybe we start from a phone call you had. And on the phone call, you heard a voice. It wasn't Assange, and the voice said, "This is WikiLeaks." Maybe you can start from the very beginning. How did it start that you became interested in WikiLeaks, and how did this contact up here, and then maybe you can come also, which you also beautifully described. This is written like an amazing thriller. The first meeting with Julian in Brussels, just before the Afghan warlocks, and maybe we start from that, and then we will continue through various topics, the Afghan warlocks, the spying at the Ecuadorian embassy, and so on.
Yes, thank you, Srećko, and thank you, Randy, for making this possible. Thanks to you. So I'm an Italian investigative journalist. I have worked as an investigative journalist for the last 16 years, and my work was initially for the leading Italian news magazine L'Espresso, which has a strong tradition in investigative journalism, especially in exposing fascism, corruption, mafia. And I worked for them and for La Repubblica for 14 years, until in 2020, I decided to resign from my newspaper. And it was like jumping in the dark. I had no idea whether I would have been able to find another job, because as you know, journalism in these days is in a very bad shape, and it's very, very hard to get a job as a journalist. But I resigned because I wanted to do this job. I wanted to keep doing my work on WikiLeaks, and in my newspaper, La Repubblica was no longer possible. My work was not possible, so I had to choose between leaving my newspaper or leaving my work on the WikiLeaks case, and I decided to leave my newspaper to keep doing my work on this case. Why? An Italian journalist spent 13 years of his investigative work on this case, because this case is absolutely crucial. I'm not sure how much information the American public has about this case. I think you have very, very little information, unfortunately. And this is a tragedy, because a man who revealed war crimes and torture, they are killing him, literally killing him, is in British Hatches prison. And his only crime is that he revealed the US and its allies' crimes in Afghanistan, in Iraq, Guantanamo, the drone wars, and he had no other reason for saying that. They want to kill him because he did something special. It was not just him, of course. No one does everything alone. He did it with this media organization, WikiLeaks. And what they did is basically that they rigged a gaping hole, what I call the secret power, the highest level of power, where the intelligence services, diplomacies, and the state operate. So, I mean, our usual work is to expose corruption, to expose mafia, to expose these kind of things. And this is tolerated in our democracies. You can do it. Maybe you risk your careers, maybe you risk libel cases, but you can do it in our democracy. Problem is when you touch the highest level, the level where intelligence services move, the level in which the state operates. And that's the only reason why they are killing him. They are literally killing him. I have seen this from the very beginning. I can tell you what I have seen in this case really upset me. I have seen a man of really courageous journalists. I can tell you, really, really courageous. And this one was one of the very first things that impressed me about Julian Assange. It was 2008. And one of my sources, journalistic sources, has stopped talking to me because she was convinced she was illegally intercepted. And of course, there is no way to know whether you are under illegal interception. Maybe you are just paranoid, or maybe it's true. Maybe someone is listening to your conversation. And my source didn't want to be with me. She disappeared. I have never have known what she knew. After so many years, I don't know what she knew. But for me, it was crucial. It changed my journalism forever. I realized that I needed better source protection because the mobile phones, emails are very easy to penetrate. And we are followed, as journalists, we are followed on a regular case. I've been followed by the police, by all sorts of actors, by corporate spies. They want to discover who talked to us. And so they are willing, if they have money, and if they have tools, they spy on us, on our meeting, on our sources, on people who talk to us, confidentially, of course, because investigative journalism is developed through confidential interaction with sources. So I realized that I needed that source protection, and I'm a mathematician. Before journalism, I got a degree in mathematics, and so I knew that there was something called cryptography to protect sources. I mean, in these days, you use cryptography. You don't, maybe you don't know, but you do use cryptography. You use WhatsApp, you use Signal, you use home banking, you access your medical records using encryption. Otherwise, everyone could see your medical records, you could see your bank records. So you use encryption without knowing that you use encryption. But at that time, there was only a media organization in the world using encryption to protect sources on a regular basis. That media organization was WikiLeaks. So one of my sources in the field of cryptography put WikiLeaks on my radar screen, and he told me, you should have a look on that bunch of lunatics. And the lunatics were Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. And very few knew about WikiLeaks, who was in its infancy in 2008. They hadn't published bombshells like Collateral Murder or younger ones. And then I started looking at them. I was really impressed because they were able to get documents, secret documents that no other media organization was able to get. And not only that, they were able to publish it. They had the courage to publish. Even when the Pentagon asked them to remove from their website their publication, they said no. I mean, I have been a journalist for the last 21 years. I have never met any journalist saying no to the Pentagon. It's so powerful, they can destroy your life. And they did in the case of Julian. So for me, it was amazing that there was a media organization, especially after the 9/11, when every major outlet, media outlet, was publishing whatever the Pentagon or whatever the CIA was telling them. So it was amazing that there was a media organization willing to say no to the Pentagon. So I told myself, I absolutely want to know these people. I absolutely want to learn from them how to do this encryption. And suddenly one night in July 2009, they called me in the middle of the night. It was a sticky night, very hot night in Rome, very heavy night. And the last thing I wanted to do was to wake up. But the phone was ringing and ringing. And at the end, I woke up and I was told, we are WikiLeaks. You have to rush to your computer, download this file, and you have an hour to listen to the file because it was an audio file. And you should, we are looking for an Italian journalist because it is about an Italian scandal. And we want to understand whether it's genuine. We want some help to verify it and to understand the local context. So at that point, I realized they were acting. They were working as a media organization, getting the documents, analyzing them, trying to understand whether it's true, whether it's false, to understand whether it was in the public interest or it was not in the public interest, and to publish with an impact, so that had an impact for the public. So that was the first time I worked with them, 2009, July. No one knew about WikiLeaks, and my editors didn't take me seriously that WikiLeaks was an important thing. And then a few months after, they did Collateral Murder. They became famous around the world. And since then, I never stopped working on the secret documents, including Vault 7, for which the CIA planned to kill Julian Assange. I'm not sure if you realize how serious this matter. They were planning to kill a journalist for revealing secret documents, genuine documents, not false documentation, in the public interest. This didn't happen in North Korea or Russia or Iran. This has happened here in your country. I'm telling you happened in your country, and your media barely reported on this. And yet, this is what the CIA planned here, you know? And you know what upset me about this case? I have worked on all this documentation for the last 13 years, and I have done this completely safe. I experienced intimidation. I was followed very aggressively. I was physically attacked in Rome, stolen important documentation which never surfaced again while traveling from the airport to the center of the city. I was fighting inside the embassy. My phone was on screen opening too. But apart from this intimidation, we are serious, but nothing lethal, you know? Apart from this, I have always been safe. I was never arrested, I was never questioned, I was never put in prison, whereas Julian Assange, after publishing this documentation in 2010, has never worked as a free man again. In the last 13 years, for revealing these war crimes and torture in Afghanistan, in Iraq, he has never known freedom again. And it's only a matter of a few months. If he leaves Europe and gets extradited, it will be his death. Absolutely, he has no chance whatsoever to win his case here. He has no chance. It will mean his death. That's why I'm really vocal. It's like you go out with a colleague to work on an investigation. Your editors they ask you to go out with a colleague to do an investigation. If your colleague falls off a cliff, you don't abandon him. You try to save him. It's a matter of decency. It's a matter of professional decency and a matter of something about humanity. You cannot abandon a colleague. Almost all others colleagues who work on these documents abandoned him. It took 12 years before the New York Times decided to speak out for Julian Assange and call on the Biden administration not to go ahead with the espionage case. 12 years. Had they spoken before, it wouldn't be in Belmarsh dying. 12 years. They have been silent for 12 years. That's why I cannot give up on this case. I'm at peace in a sense. I have done all I could. I have tried to discover the truth. I've been engaged in a real French warfare against the US government, UK government, Australian government, Swedish government to get the full documentation on the case. I paid myself as long as I could the legal fees to get the documentation about the case. You cannot win a case unless you know the facts. You cannot win unless you know the facts. So I have done all I could to make the public understand how it is so important. And people ask me why you are so obsessed about this case. I'm so obsessed because I want to live in a society in which you can reveal war crimes and you can be free. You can be free and safe. You don't have to spend 13 years in prison in the British harshness. And you can be free, and the war criminal should be in prison. He should be free. He should enjoy his family, his children, This is the difference between democracy and dictatorship. In a dictatorship, you cannot do it. If you expose state criminality at the highest level, they send you killers and kill you. In a democracy, it must be possible. This is the difference between democracy and authoritarian states. That's why I'm so passionate about this case. And it's only a matter of months before his destiny will be decided, before he will be extradited here and put in prison for life for revealing war crimes and torture.
A big applause first, please. One brief comment, and then I come to my next question. As you can see with Stefania, yes, she's one of the really passionate journalists and human beings I know. But I must say that, first of all, she is very modest. It's not that you didn't have problems with your previous newspapers and so on, because you were touching WikiLeaks and speaking about these secrets and working with them in a way, in the sense of analyzing and publishing secrets. So it's not that you didn't have the problems. It's not that you haven't been spied by this JA. Also, a small anecdote, whenever I invited Stefania to an event, we did some in the Balkans, but also here, she always first posed the question, who is paying it? And I don't want to come if in any way the money is connected to WikiLeaks or to those people. So in that way, although she's passionate, as you can see, which I really love, she is a very principled journalist who always stick to her principles, unlike many other journalists from the newspapers you name. So my question, I can see Randy there, who is signaling me that we have to move on, but I have another question. My second question, if you will allow me, and I will invite you tomorrow to come to the National Press Club for the Belmarsh Tribunal, where we will have more opportunity to speak. You met Julian Assange for the first time at the European Parliament in Brussels in 2009. You met him several times at the Ecuadorian embassy, and there is a chapter in the book which speaks about Julian as a character and his character. I must say I'm not a fan about speaking about characters, that that person is, you know, nice or whatever, has a good sense of humor, although that helps, of course, for people to be more interesting. But I'm more looking at the acts and what they accomplished. But in the case of Julian Assange, we have to speak about the character because this country and the media of this country and United Kingdom did everything in their power to be successful in a character assassination. And this book is great because it's a sort of, you know, CSI going back to the preliminary investigation on the rape allegations and showing how it happened at the same time during the Afghan warlocks. And it also deconstructs the character assassination which happened with Julian. So I would ask you, because I think people in this country don't know, many people here didn't meet him yet. I hope you will meet him as a free man who will come and lecture at your universities. As you talk at that is to imagine, how did you find him for the first when you met him for the first time in Brussels? What kind of character is he? How did his physical and psychological state also deteriorate during those years at the embassy? And when was the last time you met him?
So last time I met him was 2018. It was November. And it had been impossible to meet him because the Ecuadorian authorities denied him any access to visitors. And I had tried 8 months to get access. I went to the embassy, and I was shocked. And I came out of the embassy with my editors like began. Julian Assange is dying. I'm not exaggerating. He was a Jaffer. He had lost a lot of weight. He had these hairs like an hair mix. It was, but it was lucid. It was really lucid, even if it was in very bad shape. It was really lucid. And I remember this. My editors didn't get back to me for 2 days, and it was strange. They had sent me to London, and I needed to write about it. And after 2 days, my editor called me. Why you are not replying, Stefania? We have been trying to call you, to email you, to send text messages. Why you are not replying? And I had nothing on my phones, nothing on my computer. My communications were cut out. I was isolated. Then we discovered that we had been targeted, and my phone had been secretly. Julian is a special human being, and I don't think you have any chance to know who he is due to this bad press coverage. It's a scandal. The press coverage is a scandal about this case. He's he's a sweet person. Of course, they have destroyed him, and of course, maybe he's a different person. I don't know, because I have been unable to visit him in prison. We are not allowed to visit him, but he's a compassionate human being. he cares about justice. He could have he could have established a company to make money, whereas he's not interested in money. And he gave his life, and they took the best years of his life. And even if he will come out alive, no one will get back those years to him, you know? So they have destroyed him. When people ask me, will they kill if extradited in the US? They have already killed him. They have destroyed his life. They have destroyed his health. We have witnesses, and we couldn't do anything. We were reporting and no one was doing anything to change the situation. So I'm really mad at this case. I'm really mad. You realize how little the public opinion is doing to protect people who expose state criminality at the highest level. I think Randy now has to go ahead. So
and I'm sorry if I seem like lost this time.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Tomorrow at 2:00 at the National Press Club, they will be singing along with a lot of people here tonight, including Steve Gonziger and Margaret and a whole bunch of others. Srećko. Hey, how do they fit in? Did anybody just walk in?
No, you need to register at the webpage of the Progressive
All right.
International, and you'll get a QR code.
All right, we're gonna see you a little later, right?
Yeah. You have a drink, right?
No.
Yeah, you won't have a drink.
I'm Randy, I'm an alcoholic, all right? This is the 7:00 DuPont Circle meeting. We're about to do this serenity prayer. I'm gonna get through the rest of the night, all right? I think after 2 weeks of organizing this, I'm gonna be needing a Houdini-like straitjacket and a Bobby Seale gag to keep from drinking. All right. Fritzi Cohen. Fritzi Cohen, this is why we are here tonight, is to honor this wonderful woman, Fritzi Cohen. Like I said, the last time I started, if you went to her house, if you ever have been to, and I stayed there a lot. I stayed at Fritzi's place. I'd either stay here, and if it was too full, Dave says, go over there. And Fritzi and I had a great time hanging out. She was always concerned that I might drink too much. And I walked in there one night late, and she said, go to sleep. And the dog went up to her bed. She waked me up and said, the dog's up here. So I told the barricade. And the following morning, the last time I was there, she says, Randy, have you been in my liquor cabinet? There's 2 inches of whistle pig. It's this cognac or bourbon or something. So I'll replace it. So I went to replace it the next day. It was $92 for a whole bottle of it. Everyone seems like they're on whistle pig right now. This is not a Shiva tonight. It's the Irish Wicked, all right? Fucking like now. Fritzi was a left winger, but you would never know it. Because she's like the only person on the left that has a sense of humor. Fritzi was great. She has no sense of humor. I mean, she has a sense of humor. She really did. All right. And she loved this a lot. At any rate, Fritzi would always bust my chops, by the way. She knew how to like push buttons. Like she'd pretend like she couldn't hear it, right? So one day we're talking back and forth. We're talking about the French Revolution, Mirabeau and Danton and Lafayette and Robespierre and all that. I'm going on for like 20 minutes, and she turns around and says to me, "What?" She always, "What?" So you didn't hear that? Of course I did. I'm just busting your balls. But I know she liked the bus chops, David. You know, as soon as she went to heaven, she said to God, "Hey, you know, God, I think he's done some good work." He's so tough on him. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No. I'm doing this for that. I'm playing that. I mean, this is where she always says, I don't give a fuck about the rest of the crowd. I'm playing that CO. Right, Fritzi? All right. Let's say together now. Fritzi going present. Do that. 1, 2, 3. Fritzi Cohen presented. Fritzi Cohen presented. What's that? It's a dog napper. All right. There's the book by Andrew Cohen. If you take a look inside the page 2, it's a great book. She lent it to me. I read it 2 days ago. Just now. There's a great inscription to Fritzi. And if you take a look in any of these rooms, she has books, no TVs, no radio, no microwaves, but books and great books. And it's the only place in the city or in the country where you can actually, at this point in time, find Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Nabokov, and people of that ilk is in this place. She never buckled to the hysteria, the third Red Scare. All right, so now we're going to bring up one of her friends, someone that I know she really admired, and someone that admired her. He's a whistleblower. 2 years in prison because he blew the whistle on torture. He's pro. In fact, are you sure it's just you here today? Because I just saw you on another YouTube channel live. There must be 500 John Kiriakou. They're all over. I just saw an article that was just printed.
It's a CIA thing.
I figured out how to monetize. I don't. By the way, there's like 60 people here tonight. 40 of them are waiting to speak. And the other 20 undercover agents. One well, you guys get another fucking job. Would you do? By the way, the CIA just laid off, a bunch of cuts. They just laid off 3 reporters in the LA Times. All the wolf picture said, well, not even as the bull wants. It's okay, all right? James Clapp, whatever. All right. So, but she did do something interesting. I mean, only she could have gotten me to start watching Tucker Carlson. I don't know what it is. I said, I love 50% of what I said, 50% of it. She said, well, how much do you like what Wolf Blitzer says? How much do you like Larry Elmer says? He was right. All right, so John Kiriakou is give him a big round of applause.
Everybody, I was honored to meet Fritzi Cohen in 2009. I came here to the Tabbard Inn with my boss. I was working on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee staff at the time. And my boss wanted to leak a story to James Risen, then of the New York Times. What better place to do it than at the bar at the Tabbard Inn, right? That's why there is a Tabbard Inn. So we came here to see Risen, and Fritzi came up to the table and introduced herself. And rather than just to say hello, shake hands, walk away, she stood there and engaged all of us in conversation. And when she walked away, I said, wow, she was really insightful. Who was that? Oh, that's Fritzi Cohen. She owns the Tabbard Inn. Well, a couple of years later, I became a dangerous criminal. At least that's what the Justice Department spokesman said. I was a dangerous criminal. And in the year between my arrest and my incarceration, I came to the Tabbard a couple of times, and every time Fritzi was here. And she would ask me how I was doing. Everybody asked me how I was doing. But Fritzi really meant it. She really genuinely wanted to know how I was doing. And then I went to prison in February of 2013, and she began writing to me while I was in prison. It was a very generous thing to do. I realize now that, I'm out leading my life, how time consuming it is to sit down at a table with a piece of paper and a pen and genuinely lay out your thoughts and your feelings to someone who has nothing but time on his hands. And she didn't write me 1 letter or 2 letters. She wrote me dozens of letters. Dozens. The theme through these letters was a theme of integrity. While I was in prison, I read a book by an Israeli journalist and psychologist by the name of A.L. Press called Beautiful Souls. And Beautiful Souls was a psychological look at 4 whistleblowers through 20th century history. And one of the conclusions that A.L. Press came to was something that so described Fritzi Cohen that it stuck in my mind this last decade. It said that whistleblowers have an unusually highly defined sense of right and wrong, far more highly defined than the general public. It's so highly defined that whistleblowers don't care what happens to them. There's an issue of right or wrong, black or white. Now, I sort of came of age in a culture at the CIA where nothing was black and white. Everything was a shade of gray. That's just not true. That's not what life is. Fritzi Cohen never believed life was a shade of gray. She believed that things were black and white. She had that unusually highly defined sense of right and wrong. She epitomized integrity, even when that integrity cost her friends or cost her money or business. It was something really to be admired. I got out of prison in 2015 and again began coming to the Tabbard many times with my friend Garrett Porter here on Sunday nights to hear jazz downstairs. And every single time that we come, Fritzi would come over and say hello. I came for lunch a couple of times. Once I came by myself and she sat at the table and had lunch with me. It's not like she didn't have anything better to do. She's running a business. But she sat down and had lunch with me. And I always knew that when she asked how I was doing, she really wanted to know how I was doing. I was not Fritzi Cohen's closest friend, but I'm honored to call myself a friend. And I'm sorry that she's not here. I'm sorry that we didn't tell her these things when she was still alive. But I'm glad that we're here tonight to be able to reminisce.
Wow.
Three books at the same time?
Yes,
Okay.
I actually am.
I know it. Subtle, like I want on golf and horse racing. See how
The Mafia Braves of New York City.
I was going to try to do my George Gallagher impression.
This is George.
Says some wild stuff. Really. I'll say that for when Jeremy Corbyn comes, because I had dinner with him last night. You know, late. I walked in and he did this impression, incredible impression. You know those remember the Queen's watched at the Queen's funeral. He like imitated the guy that's doing the play-by-play. You know, the procession. It was hilarious. And she's like, welcome to mother of all mother of all tonight we're going to talk about Joe Biden, who is too lame and senile to even change his old diapers. Was he involved in building 7? Possibly his grandfather lit the right step fire with the Credico. Since I said, like that, Fritzi. Let's go back to the shipping. All right, I've got some handkerchiefs out and start crying. All right, coming on now. Now, Joe Laurie is in the house. Fritzi did not like that. He's actually live streaming this. Thank you. Thank you. Hope people can hear us now. except for my last 5 minutes. I was on the Tonight Show in 1984, okay? 1984. I saw you on that show, Randy. Still think that. She's much better than with George Gallo. So coming up. I first met Margaret comes from 1986. She was Person of the Week on ABC News with Peter Jennings. There were 3 people on that show. Peter Max Robertson, Peter Jennings, I forgot the third. Frank, that was it, yes. Okay, that was it. And she was for her work, exposing the FBI and their infiltration of peace groups involved in Nicaragua and El Salvador and all of that, El Salvador and Guatemala, and these other places were raided. So I think we respond got up on rap. But she's a long-time legendary civil rights attorney. And I got involved in the Assange case through her, and she and Fritzi really hit it off. She's been at these events, singing this for Assange, a number of times, and I invited her, and she said, "Okay," because she should be speaking today, and here she is, Margaret Ratner Kunstler.
It's a good thing there's a microphone here because I'm not good at projecting my voice, but can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. When I met Fritzi, we hit it off immediately. And one of the things that Fritzi gave me was coming to Washington without being upset. I hated Washington. To me, it was, the old phrase, the only justice is justice in the halls. It just drove me nuts to come here because my whole life I had come on buses and picketed and listened to speeches, and it was awful. I was never going to come here again. But once I met Fritzi, it was a whole new world here, and we became quite close. And what Fritzi did for me was to send me art constantly from many different sources, and it was just incredible how she read every day, and she read early in the morning because I got my message about 10 o'clock, and she had already read I don't know how many newspapers and whatever, but she sent me stuff from Haaretz, Press, antiwar.com, Jon Stewart, Fox News, Spectator World, Popular Resistance, RU, and Foreign Policy. There was nothing that she didn't read, and I was so lucky that she shared it with me. It was really a pleasure, and I loved to come down and see her, and we had wonderful conversations. One of the things that she did more recently than not was to start after COVID, her weekly, which we're going to become weekly in her mind, but her breakfast briefings, which were the most important thing that she could do, and she did it so well. Fritzi was a peace and justice woman, and she said that all the time. I'm for peace and justice, and that's what I do. And she, the last meeting she held here in June, was on the subject of what was the subject? It was on one of the things she wanted to do with it was to bring the peace and justice movement struggles to consensus in the U.S. The subject of the meeting was the hidden ways that the government was making poison and had laboratories all over the world, and she wanted to expose those laboratories. And her main enemy was the Pentagon. And, but her goal was peace and justice for all. One of the articles that Fritzi sent to me was an article by Patrick Livingston. And it was absolutely amazing. You know, I went through my emails to read what Fritzi had sent me. And I had never read this article. I mean, who has time to read everything that Fritzi sends? But this Patrick Livingston article, I said, well, I'm going to read this for Fritzi now because she's so sweet. I hope you don't feel bothered by my sharing it with you. I know you likely know all of the facts, but perhaps seeing them organized in this way could be helpful. The presentation has certainly been helpful to me, and I guess I'm trying to do my small bit in pushing for Assange's release. Fritzi. All right, so it's an absolutely touching article, and I'm going to try to briefly run through it. He goes through 3 pictures of Assange. One picture is Assange's arrest in April. It's about over a 6-month period. The second period is Assange, where he's very active and very energetic and opposing what's happening. He's yelling. The second picture was taken in one of those vans while he was coming back from the port, and still he had energy and he held up his fist. You could see it out through the window. The third time was unfortunate. He was distant. He was not involved. There was no communication with the people on the street. He was just not there. And just want to read you just a couple of paragraphs. When we look at them, we find ourselves among those gathered at the scene and left behind. On the other side of the glass, with the strange reflections and refracted light, Assange is framed for us. He is remote within the frame, and is a figure of paintings as a remote. Even as he leaves us, Assange is already gone. Just want to go to the end of the article, which I can hardly read because it's so. These images span 6 months. To place them side by side is to detect and outline the story of a very eventful year in the life of Julian Assange. They are to me shards of a broken bowl, holding fragments of poverty in one hand. One imagines an unseen whole, the object that is no more. They seem to me pieces of a shattered life, a life deprived, a life by turns taken away. The story of the images tell us that Assange is but also ours, in some measure the story of the way we now live in the Western democracies, or better put, post-democracies. In this way, 3 pictures are mirrors held up to us that we see ourselves as we are. One of the last emails I received from Fritzi was her feeling bad that she couldn't go to the July 4th ceremony in her neighborhood, because she really enjoyed getting involved with everybody. It didn't matter what their politics were. She just liked to be with people and to feel the presence of people. But she couldn't go because she said it was her sciatica. We don't know exactly what it was, but I doubt that it was her sciatica. She got kind of self-conscious about being patriotic, but she was patriotic, you know. in her own way, she was hopeful, and she was going to change this country, and she was going to make it finally accept peace and justice. Here's what she said at the end of that email. Sorry. Yes, if you are having trouble figuring out how you feel about being an American, I used to say USA, because we're only part of the Americans. Read James Baldwin. We are a complicated country, and the US is definitely an experiment with many failures, but also successes. We should remember that. Miss you, Fritzi.
Is it on?
Yep.
All right. Gotta get really close. Turn the sound up just a little bit. Can you hear in the back of the room?
Yeah.
Who turned it down? All right.
You're tired of hearing me. All right, so,
I know you got a remote. By the way, Dave Rubin, what is that? Fritzi, Sam and I went with Dave Rubin said, all right, let's do this. And we started out the Assange countdown, our Assange, stand up for Assange. It's the stand up for Assange and sing for Assange combination. But that's after, where did Sam go? Sam's right here. All right, so Sam, you remember that moment. You're sitting next to us. Right, look at the book she has. She's got Eye of Stone. We got that in the room. Who has Eye of Stone? Eye of Stone in, any one of the rooms. We get Jack Reed. He's got like Insurgent Mexico. She's got that terrible year about the Paris Commune. City right there. All right, so moving right along. Act number 4. Now it's gonna be as long as the jury was telling. All right, seriously. All right. Gary. All right, coming up, the guy who made it all happen, Sam, who brought me. Sam and I are good friends. We go way back. He was working at fair at the old Lion's Head in New York City. Say hello to Sam Husseini.
Right.
I'm trying to be somewhat coherent. Randy said that if I asked when I would go on, he wouldn't have me talk at all. So
that goes for anybody.
yeah, I had all the stuff written out, and then just feeling swirling. It's very funny, very eerie being here without Fritzi being here in the flesh. But in a way, I liken this place to her so much, in a city of facade and pretense and phoniness, architecturally, artistically. This is real, or realer, and dignified. Fritzi, yeah, you really can't make eye contact there, right there. She had nerves of steel and a twinkle in her eye till the day that they closed themselves upon this world. 84 unvaccinated. Never saw her. Never saw her with a mask. I mean, I thought I didn't buy into the pandemic narrative. And died of cancer and partly told the soul that she had. I like your brother. So many remarkable things about her. Her capacity to talk to anyone and everyone was just remarkable. And one of the things that she really wanted to do was to have left-right dialogue, to actually talk. And it's so crucial because part of the problem that we have in our society is that the so-called left and the so-called right talk all the time for their pretenses. You know, Schumer and McConnell are talking all the time about what deals they can cut to look over regular people. The problem is that the people down below, left and right, are perpetually in this state of antagonism and hatred towards each other, or that's the media structure that feeds that, MSNBC and Fox. And if your neighbor likes your political opponent, you gotta unfriend them. So that's the end of that. We need elves and dwarfs to stop fighting against each other, and perceive their mutual enemy of mortal. Somewhat British terms. Central to her was the military industrial complex. It's what she went back to again and again and again. And it's how she perceived the Cold War. It's how she perceived Russiagate. It's how she perceived the attack on WikiLeaks. And it's how she perceived the pandemic, which is how I got to know her more and more. She was very generous in talking about my writing about pandemic origins, and embraced me at a time when most of my friends and political allies were running for the hill for outright attacking. But she understood that just because the United States says it wants democracy doesn't mean it's so, and just because biolabs say that they're doing work to help you doesn't make it so. Simply put, the system lies, and stop pretending that it doesn't. And they're probably up to something no good here. Let's figure it out. And that was very, very meaningful to me. One time that I think the biggest compliment that I ever gave her that she liked was I told her that staring at her one time when we were eating, and I was like, "You look like someone, I can't place it. You look like someone, I can't place it." And then at the end of the meal, I was like, "Dan Ellsberg. You look like Dan Ellsberg." And she does to me. Jewish heritage, Wisconsin stock. I think there's a gene pool in there, but her face like lit up when I finally said Dan Ellsberg. This last Thanksgiving, I procrastinated about a lot of things, and I was trying to figure out what to do with Thanksgiving with my mom, just me and my mom right now. I tried to get reservations here like a week or two before, but it was all booked. And I was sort of going into panic mode. Okay, do I want to figure out local friends who don't have any place and try to figure that out, or what do I want to do? And then I get a call from Fritzi inviting me to her place for Thanksgiving. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to the Tabbard for Thanksgiving. I'm going to Fritzi's for Thanksgiving. And it was utterly hilarious seeing her and my mom sitting on the couch the whole time. My mom in a Palestinian dress, and Fritzi They're true, you know, it's like, you know, Native Americans and children spring paint red. And, you know, you have this fear that, you know, two parts of your world collide and it's gonna be weird, but it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And it was absolutely beautiful because of Fritzi's warmth and hospitality. And humor. Let me just read a little something. She gave me, as Randy said, she was a great reader, as Randy is. I
think
take it, right?
it's high.
Right. She gave me a book by Wendell Berry, the farmer poet. Shortly before he died, The Need to Be Whole. And you know, and I should first tie this to WikiLeaks. Part of our state is the attack on WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks promised, in Assange's words, a scientific journal. That we can do journalism in a different way that's a liberation for the global public. Right? The first thing they did against WikiLeaks, one of the first things, was try to unplug their money source, credit cards, because they saw that a global public will pony up money for an independent entity, one that isn't sectarian politically, one that isn't nationalistic, but is trying to engage the global public. And that's where they went after WikiLeaks. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves and notice that the instrument of a major instrument of our potential liberation is now, we're fighting for it. You know, we are now, with our limited resources, having to defend WikiLeaks. What are all of the stories that WikiLeaks could have broken for the last 10 years, you know, during this attack? All of those are gone, whether they relate to the pandemic or wars or economic policies or whatever. Okay, let me just read. Barry writes, it seems much easier to converse at a safe electronic remove with people in whose category you feel you belong. Great many people have abandoned any willing membership of the great category of all humans, perhaps because of its implied obligations. And Fritzi sort of wore her heart on her sleeve as a human, and with that twinkle in her eye, there was also this can-do optimism that no, don't give up. Don't say that things are lost and if people aren't talking. Roll up your sleeves and with enough grit and determination, I'd find a way past that. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Sam. You're famous. Thank you, Sam. All right. We're gonna have one more speaker about Fritzi, and then we're gonna take a little music break, and then we're gonna come back for a comedy. What? No, I'm gonna do it now.
Are you sure?
No, another glass of wine and we'll stretch out 15, 20 minutes. You know what I mean? No, I won't. Remember the old showbiz adage, less is more. Less. More or less, less is more. Yes. Garrett Porter. I wanted to add one more thing about Fritzi. We're gonna do this again next year at the same time. Just wait 365 days. All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, there's a couple.
Window. No.
That's right, I'll talk about it.
All right.
One thing about Fritzi that we haven't talked about is that she was the first in Washington, D.C. to start a project to hold the Pentagon accountable for its vast the sources and the way they wasted. That was long before all of us here, I think, were involved in any of this stuff. So that's an indication of just how early she was to the mark. Second thing is that she, in the 1980s, was the leading figure in Washington, D.C., getting the city of Washington, D.C. to enter into a Washington-Moscow arrangement for cultural exchange. And it was the first one ever. And it was because of that cultural exchange that I ended up coming virtually every Sunday night to the Tabbard to hear the best jazz bassist that we have in the United States, Victor Voss, who has had the longest running jazz gig because of Fritzi. And the third thing is she started a business of raising fish out west, offshore, and had to take on the big chemical companies. And so that became one of her obsessions that she talked about all the time when we talked to
You think your book qualified be on free court? Qualified be on free court. Do you think your Thomas qualified be on free court? Yes or no? If Judge Thomas qualified be on free court? If he qualified be on free court, do you think he qualified be on free court?
But Fritzi could do this song. I just want to say one thing, Ray. I just want to say one thing. Just one thing. It's like, it seems to me like, 2 weeks later, she's still like, expansions, and he comes back. What were you gonna say, Randy? I forgot. It's okay. Fritzi was a generous person. You forgot to say that. She was generous, she was charitable, she was Fritzi Cohen. She embodied those words on that statue on the base of it, by Emma Lazarus. Give me, Fritzi, you're tired, you're poor, yearning to breathe free. That was Fritzi Cohen, right? That was the classic. All right. 5 minutes, Russia's gonna blow up. You understand the word I'm saying? Yeah, all right. So, by the way, you just said Max was gonna do that. He just said, that was Max. Max, those are the 3 things he was gonna talk about now. Sorry. It's gonna Jaffer. Coming up now, I met her in 2017 when I was a supposed back channel between Roger Stone and Julian Assange. All right, I was fingered as the back channel. Chris Hayes said, "We found the back channel." Roger Stone said, "Of course, bunch of crap." That's exactly what Julian Assange would do. We got this great story. Let me leak it to Roger Stone. Give it to him. I'm sure he'll keep doing this. So I did her show. That show is no longer, RT is gone. In fact, all the comics tonight once worked with me camp at RT. So we've given them safe refuge here. This is kind of like Rich Joint in Casablanca. All right, anyone that worked at RT is here tonight. Just don't tell. Don't tell Jim Acosta. Because he'll do a big story on it. But she red lines, gray zone, and she's really wonderful, a great investigative journalist. Anya Parampil. Give her a round of applause.
I just want to make sure that everyone heard the 3 points that Gareth made about Fritzi's legacy. Did people in the back hear that? We've got her efforts throughout the 1970s to expose wasteful spending within the Pentagon. Then in the 1980s, as the Cold War fizzled out, she led an initiative to make the United States capital, Washington, D.C., sister cities with Moscow, the capital, or the Russian capital, and the cultural bastion, or no, that would be St. Petersburg, but political capital of the Soviet Union. And she did this cultural exchange that even without the official endorsement from the government or leadership here in DC, and that resulted in a wonderful show downstairs every Sunday.
Still going on as far as
Still going on. What was the phrase? He's
the best jazz bassist in the United States.
the best jazz bassist
He
in
was
the
the
United
most
States.
promising jazz bassist in the Soviet Union when he came over.
Gareth turned Max and I onto those shows on Sunday, and so yes, I just wanted to make sure that everyone at least heard those 3 things about Fritzi that I think are really important to emphasize about what she contributed to DC. Before saying that, I really believe that Fritzi is, well, she's here. Thanks to Randy for organizing this and bringing all of the people together who wanted to come and remember Fritzi for the public life that she lived. So thank you, Randy, and also thank you, Dave Ruby, the man behind the curtain. He's present not only through the fact that all of us are gathered here because we wanted to remember her together. Some of us friends, some of us don't know each other, but Fritzi's here uniting us. But she also lives on, as Randy said throughout the evening, in this institution that is built around us. This is all a reflection. And if you met Fritzi in person and saw how she dressed, or you've been to her home and you've seen her home, this is Fritzi. Bold and original and pretty beautiful. I mean, I dare you to find, I challenge you to find a finer DC hotel, a finer hotel in the nation's capital. I think this place is on par, and in my personal taste, more tasteful than anything that you could find in downtown with the W.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Pay attention to the detail when you pass through, whether it's the covers on the outlets or the light switches, the colors in the room, the paintings, the political art. It's all a reflection of Fritzi's touch. And if it weren't for Fritzi and her husband Edward, who passed before she did, this building would probably be a characterless luxury apartment building or an evil think tank like everything else in the area. Seriously, this is a collection of apartment buildings that Edward and Fritzi purchased and preserved and transformed into this hotel. And so that this building is really something that embodies her character. And I only met Fritzi in the last few years of her life. My husband, Max, and I met her through, I think she reached out to us because she, as everyone has made a point of saying, was so constantly engaged with the news and the media and what was happening that she stumbled upon our site and tried to pursue a relationship because we were in DC. And so we've had meetings or dinners, lunches with her downstairs, and got to know Dave and every aspect of the Tabbard. And I'm really grateful for that because she, I think, embodies, she had a real, the thing about Fritzi, and I think this is consistent in the stories that everyone has shared about her tonight, she had a real intuition where she wasn't waiting for somebody else to tell her what to think. She wasn't waiting for her friends or her peer group or anybody around her to push her in a certain direction. When a question came up, she already knew what she thought. And so she wanted to find the people who were on the same page as her and try to figure out what was actually going on in this country or what was going on politically and culturally. And through that intuition, she also had an admirable confidence. She just really wasn't concerned about how anyone was going to take what she said, and she could carry out a conversation, even if you didn't agree with anyone. And I really admire that. Those are things that those are characteristics that I would try to learn or adopt from Fritzi's legacy, because I think it makes for a really admirable and cherished person, because obviously that's why we're all here. And so thank you everyone for being here. Again, Brandy and Dave for putting this together, and Fritzi Cohen presenting.
One second, guys. Yes, he did. She was quite a dresser. She had the flair and flamboyance of Isadora Duncan of the scarves. She was quite a. And you know what's great about Dave, Margaret, others here, she would be, when I was drinking at that bar, she was like Miss Kitty. She'd be there like drinking with everybody, late, and she put everyone under the table. She talked shop. Unbelievable. What a character. All right. What do we have? Where are you going, Joe? Joe Laurie, one thing to mention his name another time.
I'm gonna move the camera when the music starts.
You want to move? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, all right. Say my name again, please.
Joe.
Yeah.
Joe. Thank you. Who are you?
Oh, that's
Right.
Yeah, I saw that.
All right. By the way, I reminded me of this. This is his birthday this week. 400. This won't die. Not enough, you know, he'll live. He was here during the play. He did that. Happy birthday. Someone asked me, they did it when my mother died. They said, how old was she? I said, it doesn't matter if she was 20 or 80. It was the only mother that I had. And someone said it about Fritzi the other day. How old was Fritzi? I said, it doesn't matter. She's the only Fritzi we all had. There's no replacing Fritzi Cohen. Really? I only knew her for a year and a half, but we got very close, as you did see. As you did. You know, she was that infectious. And so we're going to take a little break here. This wonderful band. I want to, it's, guys, have played in a long time. Really. Sat there for an hour and a half. That's kind of wages. Everything go to leading positions. I'm joking. Jeez, I told you the left didn't have a fucking sense of humor. Please, lighten up. Please. All right, the amigo.
My card right here. Get my card right here.
All right, so we're gonna play, and then if you want to get a drink, I'm gonna sit around listening to them. Hernandez and Steve Jones, and we're gonna start doing the comedy right after we move Max from the Speakers Bureau into the Comedy Bureau tonight. So
And vote this Lucy Murphy.
and I was gonna get to Lucy Murphy is gonna close the show. Why did you have to spoil that for me? I have enough problems this week. Somebody ordered me a triple shot in the market. And it came back. All those are cases. All right, so 3 more teams. Remove. All right, so right back. We got 5 comedians who came in from New York, came all the way down there just for this. And they're terrific. They all work for Lee Camp, 4 of the 5, they all were first ones. And they were at the very first, all of the ones here in New York. These comedians in Lee Camp showed up. And they did it without money. You know, I took care of their transportation in the room, but they were doing it.
What about Lee? He's not.
Lee's in Sweden.
He's in Sweden. All right. What's that?
Lee's in Sweden. Yeah, it would be great if Lee was here.
Yeah.
But you know what? Lee brought in a lot of people. Enough people came today that weren't here for Lee. You know what I mean? They were here for Fritzi. And the people, when the Fritzi part was over, they left. They weren't here for the commentary. They weren't here for Stefania, but I'm glad they saw Stefania because she's telling books.
Yes.
Yes. What are you saying? Something to make it quiet. I'm just joking.
It's quite interesting.
I'm just joking. Is this live?
It's live.
All right.
Brandon's always
Is it Mirror X? No, so.
You know, these books, I have Stone and stuff on the first come in all around the library.
Every room has a light. And there's a book that's written by Winston Churchill. I don't know if she read it or not. They got books that are 100 years old in there. They got books on cartography by Bachman. Yes. You know, about the northern part of, where was it? That big Arctic area that he was able to, was in the prison cell for 2 years. Like Julian in the Peter and Paul Fortress. Yes, he was able to get out. You know how they got out? First of all, they let him write. They let him write the National Geographic Fellowship up until it got dark. You know, it gets dark. However, the jailer there is the one that snuck him out. The jailer, he got to know the jailer. That wouldn't happen.
Peter Kropotkin is the author of Mutual Aid, one of the books that kind of influenced.
Oh, really?
He's a zoologist as well, and he was talking about the cooperation between animals to survive and also humans, tracing common lands being known throughout history, and he basically posed the question, this was in 1905, I believe, that if humans don't cooperate, we won't survive.
I gotta read that.
Isn't that true?
I guess so.
Yeah.
He also wrote a book, and I haven't read it about the Paris community. I can't know that.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, I read Marx's book. Not Marx's, Strauss Marx. Well, you know, when Louis XVI, Louis Napoleon, went into Bismarck's territory, you can, you know, whatever. It's from Duck Soup. Duck Soup is really exactly like how that war started. Did you ever see Duck Soup? Exactly. That war was done. It should have never started. It was all one of these things that Captain Spaulding, the guy was the head of Fredonia. What was his name? I'm sorry, folks. I know I do a great Groucho Marx. I suggest you give him 10 years in Leavenworth or 11 years in 12 worth. And yet they're going to do it like a 5 and 10 of woman. No.
We're live.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're live here. I'm trying to do something. How much? I like my favorite is Animal Crackers when he says, "How much you fellas make an hour?" And Chico's the musician says, "You can play, you make $10 an hour." I see. And how much you get for not playing? And after $12 an hour. Well, plenty of it, he said. Now for the hoisting, we make a special rate. And that's $15 an hour. That's for the hoisting, and that's for the hoisting. And what do you get for not the hoisting? Yeah, you couldn't afford it. You see, if we don't hoist, we don't play. If we don't play, fuck it. I see Kathy. I've had enough. Why don't you interview Steve Brown?
This woman here just come back from Iran. She spent 2 months there. Photographs. She's got thousands of photographs of Iran. I said, where are you? She said, oh, I just keep it to myself. Nobody would be interested. This isn't what you want to talk about. Sure. But also,
where we looked into what the focus of the Assange hearing now is on. Because of a comment by an ABC correspondent. However, I don't, I'm kind of skeptical. I mean, not a. I gotta get him out. But we're hoping.
He'd be a hot potato for them. What do they do with him?
Let him serve it 3 or 4 years and then.
He'd be a focus of constant protests and annoyances and demonstrations and failure.
People support. Only the people support us. By 90%.
Right, so I say that the protests to get an attitude. In other words, it would be an annoyance. The same reason Biden didn't want Assange and Stefania was why he told that they'll judge to come up with any documentary story to keep this. Oh, well, he'll commit suicide. After a year, I think it's been 1 year. The CIA wants him.
That's American.
Why the administration has just come in? They didn't want it. It's only going to be embarrassing today. Especially point to demonstrations and
Okay, we're gonna take the camera and go and see Stefania. Maurizi signing books. Let's walk over there.
Go ahead, yeah, go.
Stefania Maurizi signing her book. I have mine to give to you.
Oh, that's what
Stefania, we're live streaming you signing my book. For me, I'm sort of. Thank you so much, Stefania. How is the book doing right now?
They are not promoting it, but we are fighting and we are realize that now or never about Julian Assange.
Yeah.
Now or never.
What about the mainstream press? Has anyone reviewed it in the mainstream press yet?
You think
Yes, The Guardian, for example, written about your book.
not as I know, but there will be new revelations, and so I think there will be press coverage.
And the Italian press, have they covered it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We basically were able to get 27 editions thanks to the little people. Because the big newspapers, they cover it.
Typical, unfortunately. Thank you, Stefania.
Thank you.
Yeah, so happy to check. I don't know if you well, I do know my team now. He gave it. Gonna bring up,
We can,
Okay, start now, you folks, what do I care? All right, our first act is. I'm closing the back door in 3 minutes. So if you're not in here, you're not gonna be watching.
unless you're on consortium news.
All right, to the people in the corner. Flapping away. Say 5 minutes, it's been 15.
October 14th, 2021. By the way, the program was made right here by Radack Evangelist, and I gotta tell you about what's really weird is I gave her all the names, everything, and she put them all in. And then when I got here, somebody had to say to me, "You only had one S, Jess. They want this. You gotta have two." So I keep those together, another like maybe, and then she doesn't show up tonight. So she really never know. $100 to get this for an S.
You gotta cover your ass.
The biggest staff of the night. You know that? Spent a lot of time really watching this guy. And it was on Price is Right. Was it Price is Right? No, it was What's My Line? With John.
Before you were born.
John C. Quincy, what was his name? No. What was his name?
John Daly. John Daly.
No, that Quigley guy.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, all right, so we did this, and Fritzi loved the comics. She absolutely loved these comedians. And she always sat there and never left. And so they came all the way down from New York. Seriously, it's like they told me it was the worst road trip since the Joe family tried to make it to California. Finally got here. 2 weeks later, almost eating each other. So they started with somebody to get them a hamburger. Donner Party, that's it. It's not the Joe, it's the Donner Party, yes. All right. It's not fiction. Joe's is fiction. All right. Amy Fonda, Mom, there. Who do we have?
John O'Donnell.
John, okay, I know John, and you want to introduce, why don't you just say who he is right there, Anya, his credits, I know he was a correspondent, John F. O'Donnell. No, right from there, we're not gonna, if you get up here, it'll be another 7 minutes long. No, yes, there's no first two words.
Is a comedian. He was a correspondent on the satirical RT America show Radack Tonight, and he personally cracked the code of the chicken McNugget.
All right, John.
Hey, everybody, how's it going?
All right, just trying to stand up at a memorial, no big deal, not too intimidating. Wow, guys, have a round of applause for Randy for this. Have a Fritzi, you were all here to celebrate and honor. Yeah, I'm John. I'm just gonna get into it. Some of this stuff is gonna be a little bit edgy, maybe a little bit dirty. Are we cool with that? All right, that delayed response scared the shit out of me right there. I asked the question, 4 people said yes. Everybody else was like, I don't know if I'm down. Well, let's find out. Because that's what I got, y'all. I'm a comedian. Let me vibe you guys. Let me see what you guys are about. You guys into TED Talks? They're kind of passe, right? Are you guys into sex offenders? No, not so much. How about this? Are you guys into a sex offender who got asked to give a TED Talk, but was worried that the subject matter was going to be too heavy? So he emails you because you're a comedian and asked you to write some jokes to punch up his sex offender TED Talk? Are you guys into that? Because that's an email I got for real. And here it is. This is real. This is real. This is real. Subject line, TED Talk in your health. And then in parentheses, pretty please. Aw. Dear John, haven't seen you in too long. Don't ask. I need your help, 3 exclamation points. I'm doing a TED Talk at the Tribeca Performing Arts Center, and I'd really like to have some points of levity
my otherwise harrowing talk about indefinite detention, fucked up sex laws, and my years of solitary confinement. I can't think of anyone better to ask for help than you. What? Why, dude? This is a really big ask. Millions of people might see this talk and it can transform the way people think about these issues. Plus, we should hang out sometime. All right, here's this guy's story. When he was a freshman in college, he hooked up with a boy who was a freshman in high school. The police found out about it. He ended up going to jail for 9 years, spent 4.5 years in solitary confinement, and upon being released, he almost got civilly committed. Civil commitment laws are on the books in 30 states and at the federal level. What it means is, if when you're about to be released from prison, if you're deemed unworthy to rejoin society, you can be kept in a treatment facility that essentially is like a prison for the rest of your life. This almost happened to this guy. So these jokes just gonna write themselves, you know? Actually, no, they're not. Because I tried to write a bunch of jokes to punch up this guy's sex offender sex talk. I immediately told him not to use any of them because they were highly inappropriate. By the way, this guy named his TED talk, "Are We All Sex Offenders?" question mark. No, man. No, man. But anyway, right now for you guys, I'm gonna read an excerpt from his talk with my joke included. And I think you guys will see when my joke kicks in. This is real. This is real. When I was 19, I fell in love with a boy who was sweet and smart and quirky. He would read me his poetry and talk to me late into the night about anything and everything. We told each other our secrets and he made me laugh. He was my best friend. One night we stayed up late talking quietly together after our friends had fallen asleep in the room around us. It was my last night back home on break before returning to college for the spring semester. He kissed me for the first time and asked that we're all sex. He was a freshman in high school. We never thought that night would lead to a prison cell, but that the next decade of my life would be spent mired in a criminal justice system designed to crush my humanity. Worst blowjob ever. Would you imagine? Worst blowjob. Would you imagine? 1 star, do not recommend. This is the comedy portion of the evening, you guys. And I would be doing Fritzi a disservice if I didn't bring it. So that was that. And that was real. That was a real email that I got. So yeah, let's change gears a little bit. I'll be honest with you guys, a little bit vulnerable here. I have bipolar disorder. It's a mood disorder where I'll have these like manic highs where my thoughts really race and my thinking gets delusional, and I'll be followed by these really challenging depressive lows. I'll have to kind of claw my way out of it and move forward with my life. And the delusions that I have when I'm manic, they're very specific, they're very weird, and they're very recurrent. And one that I have is that I think I'm not only the Messiah, which is embarrassing enough, but I think I'm a reincarnation of the Rastafarian Messiah. Jah, J-A-H, that Bob Marley would sing about all the time. It's really embarrassing. Plus, can we talk about how disappointed the Rasta community would be if it turned out I was their Messiah? Ugh, gross. Hello, Rastas, it is I, the reincarnation of Haile Selassie. Stop booing. I know I'm not what you were expecting. Just bear with me. Yes, I realize your religion was created by working class black people as a social stand against the white oppressor. Well, then who better to lead you to Mount Zion than an off-putting little white guy from New Jersey? It's the perfect twist ending. Stop booing. What's that? Why don't I have dreadlocks? Because not even the Messiah can make dreadlocks not look ridiculous on white people. Subscribe to my podcast. I really do have a podcast. Nobody wants that guy to be the Messiah, you know what I mean? One thing that happened when I was manic, one of the symptoms is that you'll spend money recklessly. So when I was manic, I impulsively donated $1,000 to former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign. I get it, she's a controversial figure. I know, but at the time, I donated $1,000 for a campaign because at the time she was the most overtly anti-regime change war candidate.
Yes, he was.
And because we were supposed to be together. At least that's what I kind of thought at the time. And guess what happens if you donate $1,000 to Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign? You get a phone call from her mother. Carol Gabbard called me for real. And because at the time I was such an exuberant Tulsi supporter with such a deep dive knowledge of her political campaign and presidential campaign and political history, me and Carol talked on the phone for like 40 minutes. I was like, Carol, I can't believe the way the mainstream media is treating Tulsi. She's a veteran, for God's sakes. This is ridiculous. She went down to Syria on a fact-finding mission and saw that our government, the CIA, was arming all sorts of terrorist groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Al-Nusra. She then came back and introduced into Congress the Stop Arming Terrorists Act that didn't even get out of committee. Are you kidding me? And now CNN is trying to paint her as being an Assad apologist and a Putin puppet? Not cool. Then Carol was like, I know, it's crazy. My manic ramblings resonated with her 100% because they happen to be true, whatever. Also, what you guys need to realize is right about the time when I made this donation, it was right when the mainstream media was making these unsubstantiated claims that the Russian propaganda machine was aligning itself behind Tulsi. And as some of you may know, I worked on the radical political comedy news show Radack Side with Lee Camp for close to 5 years. And I'm super proud of all of the work that I got to do in that show. Also, it was predominantly funded by the Russian government. Whatever. So yeah, so when they were saying that the Russian propaganda machine is aligning itself behind Tulsi, I was like, wait a minute, that's some bullshit. I work for the Russian propaganda machine. And that's not what's happening. And I'll be goddamn if I'm gonna let this Russiagate nothing burger narrative undermine Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign. And for the record, I do not believe that Redacted Side was part of the Russian propaganda machine. I think the show brilliantly used the platform it was given to amplify the voices of independent journalists and frontline activists. All while at the same time telling the truth about what's really going on in America, all amongst a very broken corporate whitewash media landscape. Also, those rubles always came in on time, baby. Not anymore. Thank you, Big Daddy Patty. Thank you, Big Daddy Patty. All right. He's a monster. So is the US and NATO. I don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. All right. I don't want to talk about it. So I really thought that this red baiting of Tulsi was going to be like a cudgel that was going to undermine her campaign. And if you were paying attention at the time, it actually really did do that. But I came up with a manic plan. I figured I was going to create this breadcrumb trail, this Russiagate breadcrumb trail that some corporate hack journalists could follow and scurry all the way down the rabbit hole of. And then at the bottom of it, instead of finding the Russian propaganda machine associating itself with Tulsi, they would find me instead and feel ridiculous about themselves. So here's what I did. I realized when you made the donation, you could fill out whatever name that you wanted to. So I put Poopy Grapes for the name, because as you all know, Poopy Grapes is the alias I created 13 years ago when I needed to take over temporary control of the internet in order to keep the neocons from erasing evidence of their war crimes from YouTube. You guys all know this, because otherwise they were going to assassinate me. Clearly it worked because I'm still here. All right. So for name, I put Poopy Grapes. For occupation, I put comedian, and for employer, I put Redacted Tonight. I sort of let that sit there and percolate and wanted to see what would happen. And the fact that I put Poopy Grapes in my name had the added benefit that when Tulsi's mom, Carol Gabbard, called me, she did have to say, hello, is this the Poopy Grapes who donated $1,000 to my daughter's presidential campaign? So that was a win. And also, I don't think I've really expressed to you guys just how endeared me and Carol were to each other, because that first phone call was not our only phone call. We talked on the phone at least 4 more times after that. And yeah, sure, I initiated all of those phone calls. But she answered every time, and our rapport was undeniable. Anyway, cut to months and months later, I'm in and out of jail, I'm in and out of the hospital, whatever. I don't want to talk about it. I get a call from Lee, and he goes, hey man, do you want to hear how you became part of a national news story for a couple of days? And I was like, oh shit, what happened? And it turned out it worked, you guys. My manic plan came to fruition. Are you guys familiar with the online publication, The Daily Beast? Yeah. mean, it has like a following, has more of a following than it should, but this is true. Daily Beast, May 17th, 2019. Headline, Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being boosted by Putin apologists. Second paragraph, donors to her campaign in the first quarter of the year included Stephen F. Cohen, Russian studies professor at New York University and prominent Kremlin sympathizers. Sharon Tennyson, vocal Putin supporter who nonetheless found herself detained by Russian authorities in 2016, and an employee of the Kremlin-backed broadcaster RT, who appears to have donated under the alias Goofy Graves. It worked, you guys. Plan came to fruition. Just instead of having the intended consequence of protecting Tulsi, it had the unintended consequence of getting me fired from my job. Whatever. Anyway, guys, I'm Jonathan All. Thank you so much. I'm gonna bring up the next meeting. So funny. You're also a cast member of Radack. Thank you for Hey, everybody.
Yeah, so you're gonna keep going for John. And keep going for Randy for setting this thing up. Has anyone else here at any point voted for Randy Credico? Anybody? No? Okay, a couple people. Oh yeah, okay. Oh my God. That's smart. You don't want to jinx it. That's the dilemma I would have with the politician. Has anyone else voted for him high? Yes. Comptroller, Senator Mayor. Senator Schumer, Mayor. Against the D-Law, he's got me, I didn't write the college. Right. Yes, and I retired at the time, Randy came close, it was, you know. Really, that's well for you, that's pretty good. Oh, did against Schumer? Okay, I would love to just do Ballotpedia right now. Like, go through Ballotpedia, but no, I was talking to Randy, I used to smoke a lot of weed, anyone smoke pot? Here, probably people, give it a minute now, give me see, it's, not even, I used to do it, I can't do it anymore. I used to be a stoner, but I was a productive stoner also known as being delusional. I remember one time I got very high and then sent an email, and then spent the rest of the day feeling really good about that email. I was like, all the punctuation was correct in the email, the date's accurate, I signed off with salutations, creative choice. We do nothing else that day, but felt good about that. Joints, anybody smoke joints here? Used to, okay, I did, used to do like joints, those are fun, they're fun. Smoke joints, they are fun, but I find them a bit wasteful because in every joint circle, you're supposed to do puff, puff, pass. You take 2 puffs, you pass it along. And you get one person in every joint circle who treats it like puff, talk for 5 minutes, puff, pass. You know what I mean? Like they will hand you the joint eventually, but not before you get their thoughts on Rick and Morty. And I think everybody's captivated by whatever they're saying. They're like talking with the joint, you know, in their hand, making their joint point. And then I realize we're watching them, we're not really listening to what they're saying. Just kind of dogs to a tennis ball tracking. Getting ready for the pass it. I was also on Redacted tonight with J5. Thank you. Yeah. I was often accused of being a useful idiot. A useful idiot, which I really object to the useful part of that notion. Anyone who knows me knows I am an idiot. Actually, while I was a correspondent for Redacted tonight, this is actually kind of impressive in retrospect. I fell for an over-the-phone scam. Has anyone else wanted to be put in a conservatorship? As far as I'm concerned, Britney Spears' dad can run my life. That would be great for me, actually. Sometimes I think if I had like 3 more brain cells, then I wouldn't have put a quarter of my savings on Target gift cards. It was bad. But it's embarrassing to talk about because there are a lot of red flags in retrospect. One was that everyone I talked to over the phone had a South Asian accent, which I don't know. I guess that's a red flag if you're a racist. But I wouldn't know about that. No, I am like clinically stupid. I'm so stupid. I technically have autism. I was diagnosed in the 90s when that's what it meant. Like today it means you're good at math. I don't relate to that. I have the 90s version of autism, which back then it just meant you were a kid who liked the taste of tea. Anybody who was dumb, white, and weird was considered autistic. Let's see. My mom thinks vaccines cause autism, which I'm too stupid to understand that one either. I can understand both sides of it. I understand the skeptics of that because it's very convenient to blame like this external thing for your kids' issues instead of your own shitty DNA. You know, like my problem, my mom would bring in alternative health people, be like, yeah, it's definitely the vaccines that are making your son an idiot. It's got nothing to do with your Irish American heritage and the generations of incest in your background. Half Irish, half Norwegian. My dad is Norwegian. He's basically the Minnesota Vikings logo with my dad. It's kind of unfair. Like I have to root for them. You know, there's no one in Miami whose dad is just a Dolphin. I have like an ethnic obligation to root for this team. He is a voiceover guy. That's what he does for his job. He used to work in radio, and it's a perfect thing for him because he talks this way all the time. This is my dad's natural speaking voice in day-to-day conversation. And he's like always on. He's got no off switch. He picked me up once for the airport, and instead of being like, yeah, I'll pick you by 12:30, he says, I will greet you at noon. One time we were watching the Vikings, and there was a fumble. Fourth quarter, he got very upset, but instead of swearing at the TV, he goes, his words, he goes, this is not a well-oiled machine. The anti-drug talk was very awkward with him. I mentioned drugs earlier. Anybody get the anti-drug talk growing up? Yeah? Okay, a couple of people. I actually think it's better to not do it because drugs are very slang-based, right? And slang is very generational. Different generations don't get each other's slang. Like, I couldn't understand what my dad was trying to tell me. I remember him sitting me down and he's like, Anders, kids are going to try and peer pressure you. They're going to say things like, listen, Duke. You want to rumble with a 5? Then you better know how to jog. Come on, cat, you won't get sick with a little pinch of that pixie grip. This joke's no joke. It'll take you to the moon. Gals and gents, they all will swoon, so roll up your sleeve and give that arm a slap. It'll take to a needle like a tree takes to sap. Dig it. I was like, I think they're just going to ask if I want to try weed. I think that's my time. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Okay, I have to be up here. I'll do some crowd work, I guess. Where are you from? Uh-huh. San Francisco. I used to work at a crouton factory. So. Small world. Where are you from? Yeah. Usually that's what people do. Jordan. Jordan. Okay. Wow. Far out. Dude. I love the lettuce in Jordan. I think they have the best lettuce in the Middle East region. Truly, it's like soggy in Syria. Let's be honest, it's good, but it's soggy. In Jordan, it's crisp. It's not like Lebanon, though, where it's, you know, you got the right crispness level. Where are you from, man? Washington, D.C. Hey, I love this city. A lot of reasons. Probably my favorite one is the Vinaigrette Festival. They do. Don't act like you know what I'm talking about. This thing is legendary. They get all the vinaigrette distributors from the East Coast. They come down to DC, do bin shots. It's a lot of fun. Where are you from?
Bronx.
I used to work at a crouton factory in the Bronx. This is a small world. And where are you from, sir?
The Bronx. Sorry.
You know, I lied. I've actually never been to. I've heard it's kind of a soup area. Yeah?
Crouton, what do you expect?
I mean, I wouldn't know. I'm a salad guy. That's the end of the comedy for me. Always. Thank you. We appreciate everybody coming out for this super important. More and more, there are less and less people who can freely and honestly talk about Julian Assange's case and what's going on. So we have to keep doing things like this and speaking out because it is a shame what is happening to him and to the press. But on a lighter note, I think I'm bringing up your next comedian. Are you ready for more funny? Okay. This next performer was also on Radack tonight. She's a super funny stand-up comedian you can see all over New York City. Nice round of applause to one and only Naomi Caravan.
Another round of applause for Andrew Wade. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to share the stage with all these legends and soil it with my comedy. Andrews was talking about the drug talk. A lot of drugs are legal in DC. Did you guys know that? A lot of nearly every drug is legal in DC. It's amazing. But nobody can do them because they work for the government. It's just a cruel, practical joke played on the city, I think. And I'm like, is the government really worried that people are gonna smoke weed and spill government secrets? Like you guys know that side effect of weed? Talking, like that's not one of them. Like maybe you should put it in the water. Like I had a friend who took a strong edible. She went mute for 3 weeks. Like, I don't know. I think they're worried like people in the military will smoke weed and you can't have that. They gotta look tough. You can't have a 4-star general smoke a baddie. And then he starts to worry about things he said decades ago, like, oh man, I gotta apologize to Steve. And Afghanistan, Jesus Christ. He just called with the Taliban to say sorry. Like, Supreme Leader, got a question. These past 20 years, was I being weird? Was I? Yeah, it's a little bittersweet for me that all these drugs are becoming legal now. Because how do we know who's cool? You know, I was cool because I drove a car fully tripping on acid on the highway. You know, I don't have other stories. Like, what am I gonna tell my grandchildren? They're gonna be like, Grandma, you did medicine for fun. There's psychedelics in our Flintstones vitamins. Like, what are you talking about? I don't think in the future we're gonna be able to tell children not to do drugs since we're discovering new medical benefits every day. So what's the DARE program gonna become, huh? You're just gonna have a police officer walk into the classroom and he's gonna be like, all right, kids, just talk to your doctor and find out if ketamine is right for you. They won the drug war. I work for them now. That's it. Yeah, this is a fun crowd tonight. I think we should all go around the room and talk about our favorite covert operation that the US has done overseas. And I think that would really break the crowd open tonight. Anybody? No, nobody else wants to talk. That's right. It's my job right now. It's my job right now. I was a high school history teacher for a long time, actually. And I really sometimes miss it because now I heard you get a free gun. And I remember having to buy staplers. That seems a little bit unfair to me. My students actually found out that I was doing stand-up comedy when I was teaching. And boy, oh boy, did they immediately lose respect for me and ask me for drugs. But the hardest part of it was it just became impossible to just tell a joke in class. You know, the bar got way too high. I was just kind of like a normal run of the mill, you know, Abraham Lincoln was that guy who preferred the book over the play. Regular crowd pleaser. Works every year. I turn around, there's no laughs, none. And one kid's like, how do you expect to make it in this business with those kind of jokes? I'm like, David, you're a 19-year-old freshman. We're both not gonna make it, okay? I feel like I'm really killing it with the people who can hear, so that's good. But my favorite part of teaching was going on field trips, and it's really hard to take out city kids to go on field trips. It's really hard to get them out. And finally, I got my students out to see 12 Years a Slave, because it was obviously part of the curriculum. And that was, yes, welcome, Jeremy Corbin. Yeah. Well, you brought it in now, yeah. Okay, should I finish or should I just give him my? Okay. Finish. All right, this is a funny joke. You're gonna enjoy it, Jeremy. I swear to God. If you don't, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life after this. But yeah, there's something beautiful about walking into a movie theater with 150 kids and seeing the faces of other people there. I'm like, enjoy your matinee, motherfuckers. So apparently, I was a high school teacher. I brought my students to see 12 Years a Slave. Apparently, there was a New York Times writer sitting with them, and he wrote my principal a 3-page email about his experience watching this movie with my students. So I wanted to read some of it to you here today, and I think you'll really appreciate it. So, dear Principal Weinberg, by way of introduction, I'm a columnist for the Times and a resident, and it pains me to write to you today, but it would pain me more not to do so. This is definitely not the first draft. You can tell. I have lived in many countries. I have been your student's age. I watch movies almost every week in different cinemas across New York. And never in my life have I been so ashamed and embarrassed by behavior in a movie theater as I was today. I'm like, oh my God, what did my students say in this movie about slavery? Oh my God. We're gonna have to do this whole curriculum over again. We're gonna have to really get deep into history. Apparently, one of the students said that the actress had extremely small titties. And that was the inspiration for this 3-page letter. I go on, they complained and requested something more copious as we watched one of the greatest degradations of American history take place. And he goes on and on. It's really a beautiful letter. I mean, we really ruined this man's movie. But I'll just read you the end of it. I will never be able to think of 12 Years a Slave with every award it's likely to get, you know, that award-winning, amazing movie, without thinking of the way a group of students so far removed from those days and that history betrayed the memory of such bitter history. So I wrote him a reply. And do you guys want me to read it to you? What do you think? Dear, are we streaming? I'll have to redact the names. Dear writer for the New York Times, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day of matinee watching, writing, and general fury at the world to notify my principal of my students' behavior. It is true that they besmirched all of American history that afternoon at the Regal Union Square 14 Cinema. and brought shame upon Bay Ridge High School. There has been a long, unfortunate, and shameful history in the United States of favoring big titties over small titties. In fact, I fear I may be part of the oppressor class. Whenever I have a drink bought for me, I believe I have taken that rum and coke directly out of the hands of a woman with smaller titties. Perhaps Steve McQueen will one day address the tragic fate of small-breasted women in 12 years of concave chess. Shame on you for laughing at that. Until then, I will be sure to address this in my curriculum directly after I cover the difference between fine art and penis graffiti. I thank you so much and so appreciate that you're getting involved in the community and that you're not a cunty out of touch intellectual. Yours sincerely, Miss Caravan, PhD Cup. An instructor of American history. Thank you so much. That is my point. You enjoy it for me? Thank God. Now we have a very funny comedian in town from New York. She's super funny. I will let you guys figure that out before I bring her up.
Hey, Joe, get out of the face. Joke, it's funny.
This show is absolute chaos. Again, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad Cohen brought us all together. Thank you so much. Please give it up for the very funny Kelly Bachman. Kelly Bachman. Please clap if you knew Fritzi. I'm really so sorry for your loss. I only met her a couple of times. I can feel the loss and the love for her in here. And, you know, I know at services, a lot of times you want to get up and tell a funny story about someone. I keep wishing I had one to tell y'all, but I hope after the show you'll tell me the stories you have. Because I'd really love to hear it. I wish I had more comfort to offer than that. I can tell you what I do when I'm going through a hard time. That helps. Last time I was going through a hard time, I bought this rock. Have any of you tried buying a rock? I'm pretty sure it's an Ankala piece, and I talk to it now. So that's something. I don't know what your belief systems are. I don't know what Fritzi's belief system was, but I was raised Catholic, and the cool thing about rocks is they don't give your family intergenerational trauma. So hold on to one of these. I've also been getting into journaling. That's another self-help tip. My journal is a lot of, I am on my path, I am on my path, path. I would describe my journal as The Shining meets The Secret. I ask for signs a lot. I was thinking about asking for a sign here. It seems haunted, so that seems like a good place to ask. I tried asking for a sign before I walked outside of my Brooklyn apartment the other day. And a man in my sidewalk just yelled, "I'm still working on it," and kind of ran away. So I think my religion is I just think about that a lot now. But yeah, I don't usually come to DC. I usually come here to meet my dad. My dad drives up to North Carolina and here. We've gone to protests together. If you ever see a big white guy with a beard and a cowboy hat and a barreling toward the White House screaming, it could be my dad. Last time I met him was January 17th. We went to a march together. My dad was screaming, "My horse!" It's like the ally you didn't ask for, but I always think it's exciting when men lead chants at protests for women's reproductive rights. Last time I was at the protest, a man yelled, "They don't want you to stop climate change, ladies, get in line." And I looked at all the women around me and I could feel that we had all collectively decided to just let him keep talking in case he decides to kill us all. But that same man said to me, he said, "You know, if there were more women doing mass shootings, think about it. We might finally get some legislation on gun control. I mean, it's all about that." And no, I haven't thought about that. But then it occurred to me, I think if women were to buy guns and say they're for abortions, I think we could get some legislation on gun control. Sometimes I think about buying a gun, holding it up to my uterus and yelling, "Ban assault rifles now or the baby gets it." Yeah, that was hard for me to say too. I haven't had my period in 85 days. Is that a sign?
It's vaccine.
Oh, it's a vaccine. Okay. It's finally getting. That's good. Yeah. No, I haven't had my period. I just keep Googling it. You know, what's that about? Little WebMD search. You know, of course, I've taken so many pregnancy tests in the last 2 months. I can tell cashiers starting to think I want it. Last time he's like, "Maybe this one." This is not a sponsor purchase. That's one you can just let slide right across the counter, what do you say? But then something exciting happened to me a week ago. We can all be vulnerable here, right? A kind of gooey gob, came out of my vagina. Like a goo, some kind of goo. I would call it a gabagoo. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. But then my doctor ran the idea by me that I could be having a miscarriage, which is kind of fun. Don't know? Do we have a generational divide? No, I thought it could be kind of fun, My doctor said that. By my doctor, I mean my roommate who I showed it to, but still, it's fun to think about. Miscarriage. Get the fuck out! Don't let the lady of Majora hit you on the way out. So it was the vaccine. I liked his punchline better. Oh, yeah. I think we're supposed to light ourselves, and I think that was probably. I'm assuming that's why you're appearing over here. We don't really have a system.
We don't have a system yet. Whatever you want.
Well, oh, I see it now. Randy's ready for me to go.
So I'm gonna say stop.
Okay, this is a joke between me and Randy. This is an inside joke. Okay. Well, let's give it up for Fritzi one more time. Okay. The kind of place we hope that people with money would make happen. It's like the kind of thing I would hope I would do. I mean, just a place of community and, bringing all these people together and all the ideas and all the wonderful. And I really just want to hear more about her, and I really hope you'll tell me about her. So With that, I'm gonna bring up the next comic. He's also in town from New York, a little running theme. It's like we all drove together. He's also on Redacted tonight, he's written for Comedy Central. Keep it, or get it going. Clap, clap, clap. Get energy. Here we go.
Here you go for Kelly Bachman, everyone. Hope y'all are, doing well in the circumstances. Yeah, I'm Kelly's boyfriend, so any goodwill you had towards her, extend it to me. You have to. I had an ex-girlfriend who, she broke up with me very suddenly one time while she was peaking on acid. And I was completely sober. So that made it difficult for me. I couldn't really argue with her because like her third eye was open. Like she was seeing with this clarity that I just did not have. She was like, Jaffer, I don't know what's happening right now, but I think I'm experiencing ego death. And I'm realizing right now that I am one with everything, except you. We are two. Stand over there, please. Okay. That's my little joke. I'll talk about this. I'm someone who, for a very long time, I've had recurring dreams that I am locked in a room being interrogated by Homeland Security. And I think I have these dreams because when I was a child, I was locked in a room interrogated by Homeland Security. I'm not sure they're connected. I'm not like a certified astrologist, but and I'm not shitting on astrology. Okay, I'll never synthesize my sin in that way. But what do we do? We're not talking about astrology. We're talking about, I don't know, 9/11. So this, interrogated by Homeland Security multiple times as a child. This happened to me, as you probably assume, in airports. Me and my family would go see the rest of our family in Pakistan. Here's a pop quiz for this crowd, very intelligent crowd. Do y'all think with these interrogations, do they happen to me on the way at the airport on the way to Pakistan or coming back from Pakistan? Both. Both? Not both, but I appreciate the solidarity. Which one do y'all think? You got to choose one. Which one do y'all think? Think about it. Not. Yeah, see, of course John gets it. Yeah. Yeah. On the way coming back, on the way there, they were, when I was leaving the country, they were not mad about that. They were pretty cool about that. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, going back to where I came from. They're like, oh, all right. We got our model minority right over here. And then on the way back, I see that same dude. I'm like, what's up, bro? Remember me? And he did not remember me. He never had a very bad memory. And so it was always on the way back. I would be randomly selected. Y'all remember that in the news, right? You get randomly selected. Come back here randomly and sit with all these people who look like you randomly. It's all random. I'll be like, oh my God, America's so random. Remember random humor? Even our government was in on it. So what would happen, I'll be honest, it's kind of fucked up. It's happening when I was 13, 15, and 17. They take away all your stuff, separate you from your family, go down a long winding hallway. It's scary when you're a kid. Like they could at least like try to make it a little comfortable for you, but they don't. They really try to scare you. And I remember I'd be sitting in this interrogation room with these two agents that have sunglasses on and I can't see their eyes. And then they'd go through my stuff. I remember the first question they asked me every time, they asked, what is your business in the United States? I was like, I don't know, dude, fucking Halo, I'm 13. I'm about 13. I got a 13-year-old business. Making sure my Neopets are happy and healthy. That is my 13-year-old business. But I do have these, these nightmares. And I woke up from one of these nightmares recently, with my girlfriend next to me. So I had to explain to her that I had these dreams, and she got real serious. She was like, Jaffer, this is trauma. You have trauma. I was like, all right, whatever, white girlfriend. But I get trauma exists now, but I just think maybe there's any other non-white people in here, there's a couple. Then all the trauma talk kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere at first. But I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I do have recurring nightmares, and I do find myself at bars drunkenly yelling at white dudes for being racist. And the next morning I wake up and I was like, I don't think they were being racist. And maybe that's called being triggered. Like, whatever, so what? What? Maybe I have a little bit of trauma, so what? It's like, so see a therapist. I'm like, what therapist do I go to for these problems? We know therapy, it's like kind of a white world. I know in therapy, I'll be sitting across from some white lady, like, I need help right now, not an ally, okay? Like, I'll be standing across from her, I'm like, maybe I do want the nightmares to stop. Maybe I do want to stop yelling at half innocent white dudes at bars when I'm drunk. Maybe I want to find out, is this why I've become this anti-government leftist? Is it something that happened to me externally? It didn't even come from within, it came from outside. Am I my trauma? Like, who am I not my trauma? Like, what is identity even? Therapist just like, Xanax, we'll do Xanax. Thank you. So yeah, I feel like I should say, Muslims were not terrorists. And I know that for a fact, because there's actually no such thing as a terrorist, which I know sounds like something a terrorist would say. But I do mean that, and we all know this. The word terrorist is an extremely political term, right? Every country on earth, their enemies are terrorists. They're never terrorists. We're never terrorists. We happen to, put more billions than anyone else. We're never terrorizing them, apparently. And we know the UN has never been able to even come up with a definition of terror, like a specific, precise, accurate definition of what terrorism literally is. Probably because every time they try to, the CIA comes in and it's like, that's not gonna work for us. Awkward. We can bring it up. Come on, or Cuba, or Brazil, or Laos, or Cambodia, or Iran, or Iraq, or Sudan, or Somalia, or JFK, what am I about to die now? Fuck! 1, 2, 3, fuck! Nose goes. I think this is the crowd for the JFK conspiracy nose goes joke. So good. We'll have that hit. Okay, going back. The only way the UN could have a definition of terrorism the US would actually embrace and be excited about, it would have to go from extremely vague to an extremely specific definition. It would have to be like, look, here's the UN, we condemn terrorism, obviously. And terrorism is, as we all know, anytime, anywhere, 19 dudes who don't eat pork or drink beer board a plane. Planes. Very important for, no, not fighter jets, those are cool. Commercial airlines. Now, terrorism is anytime 19 dudes who pray 5 times a day, book United, Tuesday, 7:47, 8 a.m., Philly to New York, and I know this new energy in the crowds always get weird. So I'm like, damn, this brown guy knows a lot about 9/11. And yeah, I do. It's kind of my whole thing. But just remember, I didn't choose 9/11. 9/11 chose me. Okay. And just for the record, this is me holding back. This is a tame version of what my comedy will be, because I'm trying to get famous. People don't know who I am yet, so I gotta kind of like meet them halfway, But just know this, one day I'm gonna be a famous comedian, and then my comedy will be free and liberated and insufferable. I want to have the lowest rating on Rotten Tomatoes of all time. I want to have confused, frightened reviews, just like, I guess this was a comedy special, but he did a 10-minute bit on the application process to Hamas, and it largely beat him.
Thank you so much. I just want to say, I only got to meet Fritzi a very small handful of times. And so I'm very sorry, I can only imagine the grief that's in this room. But from the tiny handful of times I got to meet her, it was very obvious that she was an extremely sweet and kind and warm person. So my heart's with everyone in here tonight, and thank you so much for listening. And give up a round. Hey, yeah, for fun, man. I got all of the comedians. Give them a round of applause. Juan Gonzalez. In terms of, can you tell us in terms of, can you talk about, maybe Goodman, can you talk about, can you talk about the money I get from George Soros? Can you talk about how much money I get from a partner foundation? Can you talk about how much money I get from the Ford Down Foundation and how I've moderated my views for the last year, destroying the whole concept of democracy now? Maybe Goodman is a hack. She's sold out. I understand. Where would she be? She's got her own place. Well, I got into that movie tonight if somebody didn't provoke me to get into that movie. All right. So at any rate, I'm not a fan. I'm not a big fan of Amy Goodman. She's got, is it Goldman or Goodman? Whatever it is. What does she do? Hi, I'm Amy Goodman. Can you talk about this? I'm Juan Gonzalez. You gotta listen, thumbs up and thumbs up and thumbs up and thumbs up and thumbs up. Why I say fucking in terms of and thumbs up and thumbs up. And my fucking Spanish is worse than fucking Samosa. This motherfucker, Juan Gonzalez. I know Juan Gonzalez, yes, I know. Was he sabotaged Julian Assange in 2017? Miss Amy Goodman and Juan Gonzalez and Alan Mayer, they sabotaged her in 2017. So I don't support her being any part of this entire fucking experiment. So if you're gonna walk out of me, I'm gonna say what's on my fucking mind, all right? Amy Goodman fucked Julian Assange, and now she's trying to atone for it. It's too fucking late. Yeah. Anybody agree with that? You don't do what she did. Hi, Julian. Oh, what about you and Roger Stone? Are you really going to fall into that? What do you mean fall into it? Alan, why don't you say about your 2 days in Indonesia and East Timor when you got hit with a fly swatter? All right. Give me a fucking break. I know all about it, man. She's into the One. Imagine if I was regular, I would say that. Maybe good, but no, I've been waiting a long time to say what I thought about Amy Goodman. She should not be at the National Press Club tomorrow to be with this wonderful group of individuals who have actually supported Julian Assange from the very beginning. She should not be there. You don't fucking cut somebody's legs off and come in and offer them a fucking wheelchair. That's what she's done. You know, when she did that in 2010, sabotage, she came in and sandbagged Julian Assange, who had already spent 7 fucking years inside that embassy. And she does this, sandbags and blames him, believes the Roger Stone story. After he's done 7 fucking years in that embassy, she does that. And now she thinks she can just come back and it's going to be forgotten. Well, I haven't forgotten it because it's been a very 2 days later. Pompeo came out after Pompeo said, well, if the left, as if she's the left, if the left doesn't like support Assange, that was the time to call him an enemy fucking entity, hostile entity.
So I'm gonna say it as it is. Because we worked very difficult. I mean, very hard to get this man. That's the real thing. Fritzi Cohen was the real thing. Presente, Fritzi Cohen, she from the very beginning knew what was going on. She understood. She would have never, ever put herself in that position and to hammer a guy who had just spent 7 years in an embassy without sunlight. 7 years without sunlight. No, I'm not letting Amy Goodman get off. I don't care if she's speaking tomorrow. To me, I'm not gonna be there. I mean, because I have the dog, I can't get in there. Because of the dog. The dog, it's not, they don't believe that Julian Assange is a journalist, the National Press Club. All right?
Don't think that's service.
Fake news.
It will.
National Press Club, give me a break, it's a national press, that's what it is.
Draft it, Randy.
All right, I'm gonna be very nice now. I think the whole thing, people should go tomorrow to the event and like hold their nose when Amy speaks. No, they should go to this event tomorrow. It's very important to go to this event. But you don't have to subscribe to what Amy Goodman cannot atone for what she did in 2017 because it was such a violent thing to do to Julian Assange. You just can't do that after this guy spent 7 years and did stuff that she never did. What did she do? Hi, I'm Amy Goodman. I'm reading yes, what do I say next? Coming up on my show she has a larger turnover rate there than a fucking sausage factory at WBAI. I mean, at Democracy Now! Boy, I'm kidding. You know, I'm serious. There's the kill floor at these beef places. Like Democracy Now! Mate, Emily Kunstler, everybody I know left that place. They're there for a couple of weeks. She comes in like Cleopatra, and George Soros says, "Here, put some lights inside." Thank you very much. You understand it, Leslie. Leslie is at CBS. That was the last time we had news. Was when Leslie Coburn was at CBS News back in the 80s and Hassan was, remember, they were there on the ground. And Reagan said, well, yesterday, a C-123 transport plane en route from Andrews Air Force Base to famine-stricken Ethiopia accidentally strayed 3,000 miles off course towards Sandinista. The plane, which was equipped with foodstuffs disguised as M16s, AK-47s, and grenade launchers, whatever they're called, was cut down over Sandino. I'll have more disinformation as it becomes available. She is a lot like Cookie Hood. Only they know who Cookie Hood is. These two over there. Cookie Hood, a lot of Fritzi Cohen. Cookie Hood. Am I right?
No.
Yes. Look up Cookie Hood. Margie knows, Margaret Kunstler knows Cookie Hood. Cookie Hood is a real journalist. Even though she wasn't a journalist, she was there. I don't know how she got the gig. It's the greatest party time of all time. Sure that we should spend some more time now shitting on Amy Good. Because I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And she, listen, if I had her kind of money, we could save WBAI, we could save Pacifica. But you know, there's not enough for her. She wants to be Marion Davis, granddaughter versus wife. I don't know. All right, Amy, here, let's give you everything. So you can say, can we talk about, can you say, all right, let's, you know I'm coming. Okay. This woman over here is a real journalist. This Leslie Coburn is a real journalist. If you saw CBS News, now you don't have that anymore. You don't have that anymore. Now all you have, if you watch CNN or MSNBC, is nothing but shit panels of discussion by the same people. You know, you got You got Wolf Blitzer and 5 people, and you get 5 different points of view, the right, the far right, the extreme right, the fascist right, and the third right. That's what you take a panel discussion. Now, I'm going to now let the horses out of the barn by someone that does not fuck around. Does not hold back. And you've been patient, you've been here all night long. And the only person that can close this show with it, for people like yourselves who are as politically, into it as I am, politically astute. I'm not astute, but really, Joe already wanted me to mention the things. All right, Joe, that's the 4th time. That's it. All right. You're going to graze up. Never mind. All right.
Yes, consortium just created the event. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, consortium. Luci. Thank you for everything. And I want you to stay around. He's not just a great journalist. He's really did comedy here a couple of years ago. Max is funny. Oh yeah, he's funny and he's really astute and deserving and all the fucking other adjectives that I can't think of. But Fritzi absolutely loved Max Blumenthal more than any journalist, because he is a real journalist. Would you please bring Max Blumenthal?
This event is appropriately weird. Really appropriate.
And I think I'll try to be at the event tomorrow. What's it called? It's something tribune, Belmarsh Tribune. It's gonna be like 12 committed anti-war activists who always stood with Assange and Amy Goodman. So I don't know. Maybe I'll give her the Chris Matthews treatment. Remember that? Like the I'm fired from down here. And I'm appropriate for MSNBC. So yeah, I don't know. Randy appointed me to do stand-up like a few times ago. And I just figured my profession as a journalist is a fucking joke. So well, it's hoping to get back. It's literally the worst profession on earth. I'm completely ashamed to be a journalist, but that's sort of what I was trained to do as part of the unskilled middle class. And I grew up in Washington. Knew Andrew, Leslie, like as a kid, probably, right? Yeah. You come to my bar mitzvah?
Yeah, last time I saw you on stage.
Yeah. That was fucking weird. It was like the Coburns and after Clinton administration. A bunch of kids who didn't really like me that much. I'm just there for the free food. But yeah, but you grew up in DC. I've been here for decades and decades and decades. I was here when there used to be black people here. I'm not here so long. I live in Southeast. We live in Anacostia. It's a black neighborhood, or what's now known as a pre-white neighborhood. All the white people come, and you know where a white person lives because they always put like a flag on them. So it's like they just landed on the fucking moon. So we're here, we got an American flag. We got a flag from some random state that I'm from, like Oregon, or we got an LGBTQ CIA flag. We're running. Oh, we have really good like equity there, and we got a Black Lives Matter yard sign. And yeah, officer, there's a black man on my lawn next to my Black Lives Matter sign. So that's what's going on in DC right now. That's the reality in Cappuccino City. And you can live here for 3 decades and still not know how to get around, thanks to Pierre L'Enfant, whoever designed this place. It's like they've designed it to prevent an invading army from getting in. So they seriously do. So they prevent you from getting around. And I got to use GPS everywhere. Like go to my parents' house, I got to use GPS. And the GPS, the voice, it lulls you to sleep. It's like, proceed to the right lane and take exit 8P to George Washington Parkway South, Mount Vernon to 395 and Ronald Reagan National Airport. And it lulls you to sleep, and they say so many fucking things at the same time that you start getting like simultaneously lulled and lost and confused. So I found a way through new AI technology to change it to something that would actually
I would remember and would alert me, which would be the voice of my dead Jewish grandmother.
Take exit 8B. Proceed right to exit 8B to National Ronald Reagan Airport. Wait a minute, why did they name an airport for that? For that lousy, horrible actor, that monkey? Ronald Reagan, he was horrible. What he did to the air traffic controllers, horrible. Oh, you're not gonna turn right at exit 8B after all I've done for you? I blocked you, and I have to hear not to. Okay, I'm leaving. I'm gone. I'm leaving. So yeah, that's it. I'm glad everyone got here. Did anyone come from out of DC, out of state? Yeah, Wyatt. Well, you didn't have to catch a flight because you're from like Roanoke. So, yeah, one of those flyover places. But I mean, anyone who's trying to fly right now, you're gonna have a hard time. What is the cancellation rate of flights? Like 5 to 7%, 10%. It's out of control. All the Southwest flights that went down, and the transportation secretary, he's not finding anything. He's not doing anything. He's like, well, we tried to, we gave you the opportunity to go to the counter and wait in line and potentially get a refund if you were there, and you weren't there, then weren't there. And what this means though is something good in a way, because although it could mean something bad from a symbolic point of view, it means we will not in the near future have our first openly gay president. We might have a closeted gay president because it'll be a Republican, but not an openly gay president. As Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete was grown in the same political laboratory as the first Black president to be owned by the Israel lobby, Barack Obama. He talks the same way. You know, they talk the same way. They're like, I believe we need to believe in the better future of tomorrow with the audacity of our children, because the children are our future. It means absolutely nothing. And I was waiting, you know, for Buttigieg to be president, because do you remember when Obama was president and after letting all the white banksters off and not prosecuting anyone for the financial collapse and the gigantic hustle that the vampire squid of Goldman Sachs ran on the country, that he started lecturing Black people everywhere he went? Or listen here, Leroy, you need to pull up your pants, stop watching Sports Center. The white people don't have to do that, but you do. I was hoping there would be like the first gay president to lecture gay people. It would be kind of interesting, you know. Is he even gay? Because I remember when gay people were interesting and like, you know, they were kind of a little off and like they had a sharp point of view, kind of like, you know, Jews used to be before Zionism. Buttigieg, you get up there, listen, gay people, pull up your pants. Stop having prostate-assisted orgasms and doing poppers and decorating straight people's homes. You need to be like a middle-class square like me. I wonder if Chasten is his beard. I can't even believe he's gay. But I personally, as a Jew, I want to be the first Jewish president to lecture American Jews on the crimes of apartheid Israel. It never happened. Why did they never get lectured supporting that shit? Slaughter of Palestinian children, dropping 5,000-pound GPU bunker buster bombs on multi-family homes, and we're supposed to be like, oh, I'm Israel, like that. What the hell? That's part of my identity? No. No. So I would like to do it. Maybe I'll run on the People's Party ticket. Yeah. Try to get ballot access in 49 more states, and I'll do it. And yeah, as the first Jewish president to lecture Jewish people, here's something that I would say. I would say that this is my address to Jewish Americans. To Jewish America, as a people who have suffered displacement and genocide, it is completely morally and ethically unacceptable and antithetical to our Jewish traditions that we would support the same against the Palestinian people. Ladies and gentlemen, the president, Blumenthal, has been assassinated. We are now going to appoint Hakeem Jeffries, the second Black president to be controlled by the Israel lobby, as president of the United States.
Yeah. Jeremy Corbyn didn't even do that much. And they basically did the same thing. Where's Jeremy? He left. He had an important phone call. Like, you're not even labor leader anymore. Come on. Stay for Randy.
He didn't stay for me.
He didn't stay for you, no.
He didn't say for free.
He left he was down there with the Progressive International.
Who are they?
I don't know. All I know is that they have Helvetica font on their website and they're socialist. Like, I don't know if I can trust socialists who have Helvetica font. That shit is too clean. It's too corporate. They're the Helvetica socialists. All right, Jeremy, come back. I had some Corbyn jokes, but no, I mean, he really didn't do that. He was just like, I would respectfully ask that you, yes, I would please respectfully ask that you recognize that Palestinians technically qualify as human beings as well. They were like, yeah, you want to be next there. What? How would you explain your anti-Semitic statement about the biological qualification of Palestinians as technically human beings? This is absolutely unacceptable, and Jewish people everywhere are extremely angry. And that was it, along with Craig. Went along with the Metropolitan Liberals, blah, blah, blah. But it's democracy. This is our managed democracy. We live in a managed democracy. It's very hard for any of us to make any headway here. And they're not going to come out and like assassinate me like that, or just assassinate me on Wikipedia or whatever. Or, if you actually make an impact, unlike me, like Julian Assange, well, you see what they'll do. So, and it's such a great democracy. I mean, how excited, yes?
Just to bring it back to Fritzi, the thing that you can say about Fritzi is that she was not a phony.
Yes, she was not a phony. And I'll bring it back to Fritzi. But I just wanted everyone to remember the vote we just had on the referendum on sending $100 billion to Ukraine. And remember that? That was awesome. An awesome display of democracy. And yes, Fritzi believed in real democracy, and she created a space like this that was democratic. Actually, this is the longest I've gone without being interrupted in the Tabbard Inn by Fritzi Cohen. It actually doesn't feel good. It feels kind of like a void. There's a void. Me and Anya were planning a trip overseas to Europe several months ago, and I got a call from Fritzi while I was in the car out of the blue. And I had heard that she wasn't well. So I was wondering what the call was about. And she said, I'm not going to name the organization. She said, this organization has been incredibly weak on the Ukraine proxy war. Do you have their number? I want to call them. This is so unacceptable how soft they're getting. That's who Fritzi was. And she was literally dying, and she was still fighting for our future and still trying to get through to people. And she was always focused on the future and the present, whereas, a lot of other people, as they get to that age, they dwell in nostalgia in the past. She was always focused on the future. As Anya mentioned, she reached out to us. I did not necessarily know who she was, although she was in our circle, but she made a point of reaching out to us, cultivating us, bringing us to the Tabbard Inn, and supporting us. A lot of, there's literal websites, who funds the gray zone, like we're some corporate gargantuan. Well, one person was Fritzi Cohen, He's our secret Russian donor. And she supported us as much as she could, but she also supported us in ways that were not, as tangible. For example, she supported our friend Wyatt Reed as he was starting his journalistic career. And here's Wyatt. Put him up in an adjoining apartment here when he, probably couldn't have afforded housing in DC, and he's since gone on to report from the ground in Donbass, report from Bolivia, report from Europe, and do incredible work. And it was, people like Fritzi supported people like him as much as she could, and it's really I've seen it make a difference in people's lives. But the most important thing was the community that she gave us, whether we were hanging out at her house, in her kitchen, whether we were at the Tabbard Inn. It was the community that they brought us. And there was one person who was always pivotal to that, and that was Dave Ruby. Dave Ruby. Dave Ruby. We're going to bring Dave on. Well, you get out. But I just want to thank Fritzi posthumously for bringing Dave into our lives. And I know that he's going to be a pillar in continuing the legacy that Fritzi brought us. And so will all of us. And so, I think one thing that pissed Fritzi off so much about pandemic restrictions that people didn't understand was how it fractured communities and forced people into their homes and onto screens by design. She understood that, and she struggled or fought her whole life to create this community. So I think one thing we can do, stick together, overlook our petty differences, and continue to fight for what matters, whether it's Julian Assange, whether it's stopping this insane proxy war and future wars, and to honor the legacy of Fritzi in that way.
Max, can somebody get a picture of me and Max Blumenthal? We got human beings. Don't go anywhere. Because Jeremy Corbin's gonna come up here and do a 45-minute. You'll do that, you're all star fuckers. Member of Parliament. All right, so Max, once again, please take some photos.
Randy.
All right, that's a good one. That was a very good. I want to thank. We have this wonderful singer who has been involved in the civil rights movement all of her life. All of her life. I saw that great picture that he sent me, E. Jones. We didn't know about that. But I want to thank, before I get to her, I want to thank everybody for coming in. New York City, NYC Free Assange, my editor and the engineer of Assange Countdown to Freedom, Kelly Lane. I want to thank. I really want to thank you. If you go and started saying this, okay, I'll mention you first. Joe Laura is here tonight. Wonderful. Andrew Goldberg. And if you look inside the program, page 2, I asked him to write this beautiful piece. What do you call it? Is that an epitaph or is that an epigraph? I don't know. What is the technical term for what you wrote there? I don't know.
Paragraphs, what did you?
I know it's not a eulogy, it's a personal thing. But if you read that, Andrew wrote that. And look at page 2 of the wonderful, beautiful, dynamic program that you put together. Fucking S cost me $100. That was my fault. I think everybody else, Steve Brown, who's over there. Steve Brown. I want to thank DC, actually for Assange, and everybody who performed tonight. If I didn't mention you, I'm sorry. I'm tired. And so, listen, I don't want you to go away. We are going to close this because Fritzi, and I saw the emails. She said, how do I reach Luci Murphy? Luci Murphy has closed every one of these programs. She is a long-term, lifelong civil rights activist and one of the best singers that I know in this city or across the country. And she knows Steve Jones. You work together. So I want you to listen to Luci Murphy, who's going to close it in memory of this beautiful woman that I love. I didn't know her, but just a year and a half, but I totally loved her. Fritzi Cohen. So here's Luci Murphy to close it out.
Thank you, Steve Jones, for staying blessed with bedtime. And actually, Steve actually came early to tune the piano so that my nerves wouldn't jam. But I'm actually going to ask you all to sing a song with me in the African tradition of call and response. So I'm going to sing you a line and you're going to sing it back to me.
And can I mention one thing? James. I want to mention James, the guy who drove the truck for 3.5 months. Come up, going back up.
Let's actually go because I just feel that the spirit of Fritzi would appreciate this vibration. Oh, healing river. Stand down your waters. Stand down your. Oh, healing. This burning. No secret.